and then so when you say go blank, I mean, can I talk during that time frame? Where'd it go?
It will all be presented on the YouTube channel, everything you say from this moment on, because we are live.
Okay. So we've had the request that some people are trying to log on to the YouTube to watch our meeting, and the meeting has been going for several minutes. So I'm stalling for time right now.
Well, I'm looking at the YouTube because I watch it, and
right.
it's every week. Well, every time we meet via Zoom, it takes 3 to 5 minutes for it to show up, and then we also have a lag. Like somebody's talking, and while they're talking, they might stop talking, and someone else starts talking, and that first person is still talking. So there is a delay. And it's the same thing when they put up the slideshows that says next slide. It takes about 20 seconds, 20, 30 seconds for it to go to the next slide as well. It's just a buffer issue, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But I still don't see it up.
All right. It's kind of like when someone calls into a radio station, they say, turn off your radio if you're talking, because you hear the back feed or the whatever. So
yeah.
All right. So Carissa, why don't you tell me when it pops up? And if
it just did.
Okay. So what I think I'll do now is I'm going to call the meeting to order. And the first thing that we need to do is approve the agenda. So can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Can I have a second?
All second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. So hopefully we're all up and live right now, it sounds like. So we'll go on to public comment. So Matt and Myra I believe are reading the public comments, and we're giving Robert the night off for reading comments. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
He owes me a cup of coffee.
Unless someone's internet goes down, and then Robert has to jump to the rescue.
I want to remind the board that this is a special board meeting. So the public comments we're reading tonight are only on items that are agendized for this evening. So we did receive one comment that was not related to the agenda's item that we won't be reading tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started with with the public comment.
Dr. Perez?
Yes.
I'm sorry, may I interrupt you? We have to do the approval of the El Collegio lease. And then we do the public comment before we do the 4B, because all those public comments are related to that item.
Okay.
Thanks.
Left, I think you're muted.
Mr. Brown, you're muted.
Mr. Brown, you're muted. Now Mr. Brown is back in town. I've been reading Dr. Seuss to my grandkids. So we're going to go to 4A with a microphone on. So thank you, Mindy, for catching that comment thing for us. And we're going to discuss the approval of the El Collegio ground lease with Sonoma County Office of Education.
Right. So we did a full write-up there on the agenda item. So hopefully you have a good, a good background on this. But I'll give you a little overview. So SCO's had an ongoing lease for the El Collegio site. That's a site really adjacent to Richard Crane since the early 70s. They've used the site for county special ed classes, and was a unique situation that actually was involved in the construction of that site. There was former ed code that allowed for the construction of the site with state facilities funding, which was provided by the state. But the facilities were made available by using the county superintendent until he stops conducting the classes. So they were able to use state funds for that, with a provision that the county would continue to be able to use that site until they stopped using it for the original use, which was for special ed classes. SCO plans to modernize the site and expand the campus with 2 special ed classes, additional classes on that. Funding for the project will be a combination of state facilities funds and SCO funding. So the state facilities program, the regulations require that the property is leased from a government agency for at least 40 years. So we've been working with legal on both sides, with our legal and with SCO, and they came up and developed a new lease that covers all the bases on that. So approval will allow SCO to move forward with submitting their application for the funding, and they need to do that by the end of this month. Are there any questions?
I don't hear any.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, neither do I.
Neither do I.
I don't.
Okay, and no questions. Are we ready to vote on this for the approval of the ground lease? I assume so. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank
So
you.
now we'll go to 4B, the reevaluation or the reevaluate of opening of schools. So Myra, do we want to read the comments first, or do we want to discuss it? What's the succession here?
I believe we read the comments first and then I'll
Okay.
do the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
We have about 30 comments that we will, I have asked Mr. Marshall to help me in the reading of those, so we'll alternate. So we have different voices. Want to make sure that you hear from different people. So I'm going to start with the first public comment. It is from Danielle. How many teachers won't come back to campus with students? How many are just telling white lies to our students and to keep hope alive? One day we will come back to campus. What about our students who are in the last year of elementary and junior high school or high school? There are many memories to be made that are fading away. What of any programs or promises from spring of last year that may not be able to be collected again? Programs such as school paper drives, school course meetings, future chef, science clubs, and so on. What is the district going to do then when the teacher union still refuses to make a plan? Is the district ready and willing to force the choice or call out players who are prohibiting numerous students' quality education and causing so much strain and stress on families? When a child gets to the point of a meltdown and shuts down, a student cannot learn. This has been said by numerous educators and parents. Have any members of the board collected data from parents about how often this scenario is encountered? How has the board done any talks with parents? What are the results? What about the children that are in 2 homes that were struggling before the shutdown? Have you forgotten about them as well as the IEP students? Parents want complete transparency, and it is their child's education. Again, you may be faced with class action lawsuit, as they have been popping up all over the country, and a great decline in public school enrollments, and more are wanting the flexibility and more humane treatment of the students to be able to ensure knowledge retainment. Also, after public comment laced with many questions and a bit of conversation to address the questions should be had. If not, what's the point of having them? And if we are unable to get answers, we aren't allowed to be on the meeting to ask them, why are the members of the board so content in reading questions from the public and refusing to answer them?
Okay, the next one is Suki Winship. She writes, I will be happy to go back to my classroom to do in-person teaching when our county health officer indicates that it is safe. I will want to be presented with a plethora of data about successful reopenings in schools around the world, including strategies they use to maximize safety. I will want to see that our classrooms are equipped with all the needed safety measures and that my students and I are provided with appropriate PPE to keep us safe. Lastly, I will want to see a clear, well thought out plan for dealing with illnesses that will arise, COVID or otherwise.
Next comment does not have a name. Schools should not be opened due to the county being in the purple tier. In addition, once schools are reopened, there must be additional staff to carry out cleaning protocols.
Okay, the next comment is from Tesha Henderson. It says, greetings, exclamation point. I am a special education teacher currently teaching at Technology Middle School, and this is my first year with CRP USD. I greatly appreciate the time and energy the school board has invested in ensure the safety of both students and staff across the district during this pandemic. I trust the many decisions that must make throughout this process are thoughtful and keep everyone's best interest in mind. I'm writing to you today to express my thoughts on school reopening. We all know that distance learning has been a tremendous challenge for students, families, and educators alike. As a special educator, it's clear that virtual learning isn't the ideal option for instruction, especially for the most vulnerable of our populations. I personally want nothing more than to get back in the classroom and finally return to some version of normal with my amazing students. At the beginning of the school year, I was hopeful that we would be in better position to begin hybrid learning. The unfortunate reality is that Sonoma County is still in the purple tier. Therefore, I believe we are in no position to do so. I believe we should continue the option of distance learning until we start seeing a reduction in cases so it is safe to open our doors once more.
The next comment is from Sarah Land. Dear Board of Trustees, my name is Sarah Land, a teacher at Tech Middle School and a community member. I am writing again because I am concerned that there is an increasing pressure from the community to open CRPA USD schools during COVID-19 pandemic. This push concerns me for many reasons. Most importantly, the rate of positive cases in Roanoke Park specifically has been on the rise for weeks. Recently, several students across 3 classes have admitted to me that they had to take the COVID-19 test because close friends and family have tested positive. If CRPUSD begins with a hybrid model soon, I will not feel comfortable teaching for fear of contracting and passing this virus to my family. Trust me when I hear the community's concerns on the impact of distance learning and on their children and home lives. The concerns center around their child's emotional and social well-being. I hear this stress as well as every single day from each of my students. It breaks my heart. I miss the quality connections that I would have typically established in my classroom. My classroom philosophy centers around collaborative work, and it is sorely missed in the current online environment. Assuming that all safety protocols are in place, there is still a huge risk of contracting the virus and spreading it. I strongly encourage the Board of Trustees to continue supporting the distance learning model until the number of positive cases of COVID-19 in Sonoma County shows a downward trend.
Okay, the next one is from Jill Reed. She writes, members of the board, thank you very much for all that you do. I am a first grade teacher at Monte Vista Elementary School. I love being in the classroom and interacting with the students. I love the special relationships that we create by sharing the journey of learning together and growing together. I soak up the smiles and excitement with each new day because of a concept that is learned, a friend that is made, a classroom community that is created and nourished by our experiences. I'm sharing this with you first because if there were a way for us to go back to the classroom, knowing we are safe and our lives are top priority, staff and students, this would be my first choice. I cannot speak for everyone, but I'm pretty sure we'd all choose this scenario. Unfortunately, the above scenario just will not work. It makes my heart ache to think of continuing the school year interacting with my students through Google Meet. But what makes my heart ache even more is the thought that I might have to comfort those students and help guide them through the grief of losing a friend or a teacher because of COVID-19. I might have to guide them through the daily fear for their own lives because they are being exposed to a deadly virus. I might also have to answer the question, quote, If it's unsafe for us to be around each other, why are we here? End quote. How would I answer that question? How would anyone answer it? Is it possible for us to successfully teach our youth and not physically be in the classroom with them? We answer that question every day with our Google Meets and lessons. It is not perfect, but we are safe. It is not possible to experience or provide meaningful learning when you are placed in an environment that puts your life at risk. On September 19, a September 19 article in the Press Democrat contained a quote from County Health Officer Dr. Sundari Mace about the effects of the virus. Mace said that children are less likely to suffer the worst consequences of the coronavirus. Quote, really adverse outcomes, end quote, are still a possibility. And she said outbreaks involving children eventually lead to infection among adults who are at greater risk of serious health complications from the virus. Please protect all of us and refuse to open schools until there have been 14 days of no new cases in Sonoma County. Respectfully, Jill Reed.
This comment is from Tony. On her tweet today informing the community of a special board meeting tonight, Dr. Perez said a letter to the community will be sent out based on the board's decision this evening. However, there is no action before the board tonight on the agenda. This reopening of schools is simply a discussion item. This is misleading to the public.
The next one is from Eric. He writes, when trustees in the district refuse to be transparent about opening of schools, or in this case, turning on their computer camera, the public does not know if they are voting or who is the voice behind the screen. It can be anyone, not necessarily the elected trustee. All votes since the district went to virtual meetings in March should have been roll call, and the superintendent and the board president should know that. The superintendent and board president should require the board members to show their faces on camera, if for no other part of the meeting, at least when voting.
Okay, the next comment is from Joe. Windsor, Santa Rosa, Petaluma, they have all released reopening plans. It allows families to have an idea of what they expect moving forward. They are all announced dates well in advance, so parents know that there will be no school. CRPS USD keeps moving the goal line until waiting until Richard Crane had already started before deciding on distance learning in late July, telling families there would be an update in October. It's October 27th. And the only update parents got said they were still in purple. That's not an update, that's not helpful, and that certainly doesn't make parents feel like the district has any idea what they are doing.
The next comment is from Lori. She writes, as a parent with multiple kids at multiple sites, I fear the district won't view the big picture when looking at reopening plans. Anything less than full-time school for all of them can have parents angry and frustrated. Any attempt at half days or certain days of the week needs to be coordinated, so it is not a parent's full-time job to be picking up and dropping off kids at various hours, making it impossible to work. The district needs to make it all or nothing for in-person school.
Next comment is from Amy. Teachers are working harder than ever, having a hard time connecting students through a screen and having even harder time engaging students enough already. Kids should return back to school. They can play sports, eat at restaurants, go to the gym, be at daycare center. Safety measures can be put into place to make sure students are safe. Every year following the fires, the district has assured families and facilities HVAC systems can be, the fires of the district, can be handled things like this. I'm sorry. The district didn't consider families with multiple kids when they created this insane distance learning schedules, that they should go now and open fully.
The next comment is from Tara D. Can you please discuss opening once we change tiers? Discussing now and postponing opening because we have not changed tiers is not fair. It should be discussed and looked into every 2 weeks, and I certainly hope as soon as we can open, you open like all other districts.
Next comment is from Susan Taylor. I would like to take this moment to express absolute disappointment. Much of our community and our parents, and most importantly, our youth, has expressed regarding the district's administration and board members. It is October 28, 2020, and you have failed to provide children, specifically our 6th through 12th graders, with any hope of reopening their school. You have failed to provide them with distance learning model that is effective and mentally and emotionally safe. Your district students are drowning in isolation and yearning for you to provide them a plan that gives them hope and assures them that they are going to receive the education that they are rightfully owed, and a plan that has provided the insurance that they are the priority. Instead, what you projected is gloom and doom. All you present is attitude that is impossible to open, that if students and teachers attempt to open, they will die. The whole attitude that reopening schools equals death is completely absurd. As we all understand that our community is still in the purple, which is questionable fact and is of itself, we continue to wait for your reopening plan that shows that the children are the priority, not the teacher unions or the political gain. Schools are reopening and they are doing it successfully and safely. At this point, there is no excuse for this district to be dancing around the impossibilities of opening. The district needs to present a reopening plan. Any other excuse is blatant child abuse. Cotati-Rohnert Park School District is responsible for opening our schools, and it is a time to do that. You do not need to continue to bring our attention that we are in the purple tier. You need to announce what you are doing to proceed as soon as we enter the red tier. The virus rate is so minimal that an individual has a higher chance of getting in a car accident by the way to and from school than by dying from a COVID school outbreak. Parents and children are tired of battling distance learning. They are tired of receiving school notice messages, issues with students sending of unwanted emails regarding our personal information being exposed, emails regarding our students being exposed to pornography, emails telling us that we are all in this together. It is clear we are not in this together. It is our district and our board, our teacher union, and our country and our county. On the other side, it is our parents, students, and the population of teachers willing to go back to the classroom. Unfortunately, together has not been an option. The district is failing its students.
Okay, the next comment is from Julius Walker. Julius writes, as the Board of Trustees begins discussions on the viability of reopening schools in the middle of the COVID pandemic, numerous things need to be considered. First, experts are indicating a second and third wave of infections are looming. Should a wave or event hit one of our schools while reopened, what is the likely response? Given the financial issues clouding priorities, is it worth the price to the budget to reopen only to have to close in the event of an outbreak? Second, speaking of financial issues, this board has been reticent to make hard decisions to help the district's finances. Some of the issues I refer to involve paying 2 superintendents, one of which is making $235,000 a year and hasn't been seen in the district in months. What exactly are we paying him to do? Second, in a prior meeting, district staff recommended a reduction in staff that are not currently working due to the pandemic. Right now, the district is paying individuals not to work because the Board of Trustees is afraid to make tough decisions. Where is the transparency? Trustee Nahn keeps talking about how he is transparent, yet he and Trustee Gillies have failed to show their faces during any board meeting. Given that none of the votes taken in any board meeting have been by roll call, and given Nahn and Gillies' propensity of not showing their faces during meetings, how does the public know that is even them voting? I think the public should question every voice vote taken where a trustee has not been visible during the meeting.
Okay, the next comment is from Janice
Can
Zinn.
we go back there just 1 second? All resolutions are roll call. They're not all yay or nay. So just want to add that.
Thank you. Janet, the next comment is from Janice Zimberg. I received a note from the superintendent this morning indicating that she would notify the community of any decisions made by the board regarding reopening schools. As I read the agenda, no decision can be made during tonight's meeting as it is a discussion item. When does the board anticipate meeting to make a decision, since it can't be made today? Allegedly, teachers have already been notified that nothing will occur until after the first of the year. Why haven't parent been notified? What if the county enters red or orange in the near future? What will teachers be forced back to the classroom?
The next comment is from Sam. Without a plan in place available for public viewing, how are parents supposed to have confidence that this school district will keep kids safe? They are going to open by flying by the seat of their pants at the last minute. They are working on an MOU with teachers, but what about letting the other part of the equation, parents, in on the steps being taken to ensure kids can get into the classroom and be kept safe once there? If a district is not going to analyze and plan for different scenarios, why should parents trust their kids with them?
Next comment has no names. With family members in my household who gave at-risk health concerns, I do not feel comfortable teaching in a classroom and would not only like to enter, although I will still be scared. The classroom when the county has reached the appropriate levels. I think the schools opening during flu season may also result in even greater anxiety, as it may become difficult to discern between illnesses. I think that's
The next comment doesn't have an author.
okay.
I am currently a primary teacher at one of the elementary schools here in Cotati-Rohnert Park. At this point in time, I do not feel safe returning to a classroom. To begin with, I can't begin to imagine how I will manage to keep primary students in their seats for an entire day. In addition, I don't feel it's developmentally appropriate to make them stay in one spot and not socialize for hours either. In addition to the logistics of keeping students in a contained area, I also fear what would happen if a student does contract the virus. I would hate to see my students get sick and pass it to their friends. Also, I have a compromised immune system and I'm fully aware of what that will do to my body if I get sick. At home, I am able to keep myself safe and healthy. At school, I will have little control over what I'm exposed to. There are many teachers in our district that have compromised immune systems where contracting this virus could cause severe health issues and even death, not to mention students with the same situation. It would break my heart if my class lost a classmate to this virus just because distance learning is inconvenient and difficult. Finally, if I get sick, who will take over my class? To begin with, guest teachers are not going to knock down the doors to teach in my classroom where the teacher is sick with COVID. This means that students will have to return back home with their schedule will be disrupted again and possibly no one to teach them. For these reasons, I do not feel safe or comfortable going back into the classroom until we can be sure that it is safe. On a more positive note, as a teacher this year has been a huge learning curve. With that said, I have also been able to connect with families in ways that would not be possible had the pandemic not occurred. I see many families rising to the challenge of supporting their children in ways that I never dreamed possible. While I respect and know this is not the best situation for many families, I am proud of the efforts that many of our family have put into supporting their child's education. For this reason, I feel hopeful that students will continue to grow academically until it is safe for all of us to return to school.
This comment is from Amy Miller. Good evening, Dr. Perez and Board of Trustees. I'm writing in response to some public comments made at last week's meeting regarding reopening in our school district. I am a 4-5 combo teacher and a resident of Rohnert Park. I want to provide an educator's perspective on distance learning and moving to a hybrid model. Some of the comments made about teachers were hurtful and simply untrue. The one that stands out most in my Moses claimed that teachers hide behind a screen, playing dumb to the fact that their students are falling behind. It may seem that way, but honestly, I am trying to normalize our current situation as much as possible because structure and reliability are the keys to reducing stress. I absolutely see how much my students are struggling. I spend time outside of class meetings providing emotional support. I worry about my fifth graders who have to help younger siblings sometimes during class meets will fall behind. I worry that there are too many distractions in the home to make learning meaningful and keep children engaged. I am not blaming parents at all for that. I know that we will be doing the best that we can. I do not have children of my own, so my students are my children, and I care deeply about their health and safety. I do not like distance learning at all, but I recognize that at this moment, a less strict learning model is not safe at this time. I am listening to the county health officials. As a resident of this community, I am appalled by how many people are not following any of the recommended COVID prevention guidelines. While walking my dog with a mask on nearly every day, I am generally the only one who is masked. On weekends, I see adults congregated unmasked, playing soccer or paddle tennis. This is an airborne disease. If you were exerting yourself and you are spreading more potential contaminants into the air than normal. I don't see how Roner Park Public Safety is intervening at all. We can't move out of the purple if we do not take this more seriously. Many of my colleagues have children of their own and are teaching their students from home. They are understandably worried about returning to school and having outbreaks. Some teachers like myself have a spouse who has a chronic serious medical condition that makes him at much higher risk to get sicker or die if he contacts COVID-19. I want to end with this quote I saw recently, which said, "We isolate now so that we can gather again. No one is missing." Thank you for listening. Amy Miller.
The next comment is from Michelle Wing. She writes, "Dear Superintendent, Perez, and Board of Trustees, thank you for having a meeting tonight to discuss a plan for reopening of our schools. While I know there are many people wondering when we are going to reopen, that is something that cannot be answered tonight. As long as Sonoma County is in the purple tier, CRP-USD will remain in distance learning. When Sonoma County does allow schools to reopen, are we ready? In order to prepare efficiently, the district needs to survey all families and teachers and ask the following questions in order to adequately plan. 1, once schools reopen, how many families would prefer to continue with distance learning or choose hybrid? 2, how many teachers would choose to come back in the classroom or continue to teach virtually? Once we have the answers to these questions, we could then group students and teachers together that have the same preferences. We would know how many students to prepare for on our campuses when we are able to open. Families and teachers need to be given a choice about what type of learning they want to continue with when schools are able to reopen. As a parent, to hear over and over again, "We are working on it," is frustrating. We need more details and more communication. A plan needs to be made and communicated now. It can be adjusted later if safety requirements or data changes. Many other districts and teachers unions have plans in place to keep students and staff safe. We should be looking to them for guidance and recommendation. Once again, I feel like CRP-USD is behind other districts in our county and our state. Based on the minimum information and communication from the Board of Trustees in the district, I do not have a lot of confidence that our district will be ready for students and staff to reopen when Sonoma County moves into the red tier and Dr. Mace gives the approval to safely reopen schools. Lack of clear communication and information is one of the reasons I am running for a trustee. We have to do better. Regards, Michelle Wing.
Next comment is from Kim Stainer. I'd like to start by thanking the board for working so hard on this in this challenging time. I have taught in this district for 25 years and have never spent more time working at this important job. It amazes me the amount of hours and energy I am using to keep my wonderful 3rd and 4th grade graders learning. But really what I want to say is that much as I want to see their adorable faces and be with them in a classroom, I also have true fears of what could happen if we are not fully prepared to reopen. I'm not just worried about my family and myself, I am worried about my school families. The idea that a student bringing home this disease and the results that could occur terrifies me. What if I am the one who hasn't and doesn't know and gets them sick? What if one of them gets others sick and someone actually dies? What is the guilt and pain that add to the already challenging situation? I know that you have heard many negative comments from the loud, angry side of this, but there are just as many, if not more people who would not send their child to school, even if it opens. They just aren't the ones complaining right now. I would hope that our district would ask for input from families, who would send their kids back, under what circumstances would they send them back and feel right now. We need to have a well thought out plan with all the resources needed to reopen. While that is something we are working on, there are also resources not available that may be needed for safety. I am a teacher who loves what I do, and I'm working harder than ever before. Please don't forget the quiet ones whose voices need to be heard as well. Thank you for your time.
The next comment is from Jacqueline Bernal. Hi, I am writing to address the idea of reopening. As someone who is currently spending between 3.5 and 4.5 hours a day in live meetings, I too would like remote learning to end. My students get frustrated, I get frustrated, but we march on. Yes, there are some huge challenges. Some days, most days, it seems like we are just treading water. But seeing my students come into our remote classroom is encouraging and motivating. This is not the ideal schooling situation, but my students and I are making the most of it. We need our community to support us. Calls to open school before case numbers are down in our county are not helpful. They just add stress and anxiety on our teachers and students. I ask that while you, the school board, make a decision for an in-person or hybrid model, please consider the safety of our students and school personnel first. 5th grade teacher, Jacqueline Bernal.
Next comment is from Lisa Bauman and Chris Steffens. Dear Board of Trustees and Superintendent Dr. Perez, my husband and I are both teachers at Rancho Cotati High School. We have each been teaching for 22 years, and of those, we have been in the district for the last 7. Our son also is at Rancho as a 10th grader. As science teachers, we are well aware of the risks of the pandemic and never did imagine that we would experience one of the world's worst. When we chose to become educators, we did so because we wanted to be in classrooms teaching our students, and nothing would make us happier than to be teaching them in person again. However, this pandemic is dangerous and deadly. My husband's sister contracted COVID-19. We had a close friend die from the virus, leaving behind a wife and 2 children. This is why we are so appreciative and grateful that you have taken this pandemic seriously by supporting a distance learning model. Although we both currently work more hours than we ever did while working in the classroom, we are happy to do so because it means that we can keep our son, our students, fellow staff members, and our teaching colleagues safe. Returning to the classroom makes us and our son very nervous. With no contact tracing and virus being widespread in Sonoma County, we are very concerned to hear the recent letters to the board pushing for reopening. A premature reopening would have devastating consequences to students, including our own son, staff, teachers, and loved ones at home. We must continue to adhere to the safety guidelines of the county and state officials until we're safety to return to our classrooms. If and when we move to hybrid model, we must have a comprehensive safety plan in place that protects all stakeholders. We will be ready to return to the classroom when that day comes. Respectfully, Lisa and Chris. I'm in biology, AP biology, and AP environmental science.
The next comment is from Tracy Owens. Dear Board of Trustees and Dr. Perez, my name is Tracy Owens. I'm a parent of a 4th and 6th grader in CRP USD. I also teach 2nd grade at Evergreen, and I am a resident of Roanoke Park. I'm writing this letter to share how proud I am of our district and community to make it possible for students to continue their education this school year. I'm happy to see the quality of instruction that my own daughters are getting during this never done before distance learning. Both my girls are happy to go to school every day, and I always hear their teachers greet them with joy in their voices. Yes, they would like to be on campus, but they understand the reality of our situation and the potential consequences of being on campus. Their teachers are making them know that school is important and making it fun at the same time. Having taught sixth grade and fifth grade before, I'm very aware of the students that need the standards that need to be covered in the fourth and sixth. Both my girls are learning those standards. Teaching online is in no way is anything that in my 23 years of teaching I thought I would ever do. This school year, I take pride in saying that my students continue to learn. I continue to work many hours to make sure the essential standards are being taught while fostering second graders' desire to learn. I'm seeing proof of their understanding every day when I meet in live groups and when they turn in paper or online assignments. I want to commend all the parents that are supporting their students in their learning. Majority of my students are in attendance for my live instruction and completing their assignment. Much of this is due to family support. I'm available for my students and families. I have students come to my office hours on a regular basis and parents email me, text me, or call me on a daily basis. I'm making connections with students and they are learning. As for the thought of going to a hybrid model, I am very apprehensive to this thought. I'm aware that going to a hybrid model is not an option at this time because our county is in the purple tier. I don't want to return to the classroom until it is safe for myself and my children, personal and students. Dr. Mace gave recommendations for a gold standard of reopening, which is the lowest risk. The lowest risk is the only option for our students and our teachers when hybrid becomes an option. Thank you so much for your time and consideration, Tracy Owens.
Next comment is from Shelby. I urge the board to continue with distance learning until it is absolutely safe to return to in-person learning. COVID numbers in Sonoma County have not decreased. We are still in the thick of things. With flu season upon us and the holidays, when large groups of people gather, I do not feel that the situation will improve in the next coming months. Please keep safety as a number one priority in deciding when to return to in-person learning. I know that distance learning is not ideal, but we are making the best of the situation and keeping our kids safe. Thank you for all of your hard work.
The next comment is from Robin Chittister. Hello, I have a son who is a freshman at Collegio High School. Like all high schools in Sonoma County, Collegio is subjecting students to distance learning. They've tried to make it as painless as possible, but distance learning is failing kids. My son is extremely frustrated by the lack of social interaction, the constant reliance upon screens and videos, and the monotony of computer-based work. At the beginning of the school year, he was psyched to start high school. Now his attitude is, why get good grades? You don't need a degree to be a fill-in low-paying job here. As a freshman, he doesn't actually know anyone in his class. The school cannot facilitate gatherings, even the smallest cohorts into which students are sorted. The social isolation is causing serious depression. COVID isn't going away. We need to learn to live with it. For the average student, the risks of COVID are far less than the risks of social isolation and a lack of education, because distance learning isn't really an education, particularly for students who don't have the resources to get extra help or attention. A California court has already ruled that distance learning violates FAPE. We need to open Sonoma County schools. We're failing our children when we don't provide them with their constitutional right to a free and appropriate public education.
Next comment is from Betsy Moses. I have compassion and empathy for parents who are on parenting overload. I feel the urgency of my students who want to be back in school. I want to be back in the classroom too, because I love the dynamics of a classroom and the connections I make with my students, but only when and if safe. I have been teaching in this district for 29 years and have done the fire drills, earthquake drills, active shooter procedures, practices, for what could happen. I've managed students during lockdowns. Schools ask more and teachers oblige. When I got into teaching, I never expected it to be easy, but I also never expected to have it abruptly recreate my teaching style, lose the spontaneity of a classroom dynamic, and try to be on all the time, providing tech, learning, and emotional support to my students. I want to be back in the classroom, but only when it's safe.
The next comment is from Nancy Ellis. She writes, board members, I urge you to keep the students, teachers, school staff, and the entire community served by the Cotati-Roanoke Park Unified School District as safe as possible, but by deciding to continue distance learning for the entire 2020-2021 academic year. Our community and our entire county remains mired in COVID infections. The average daily number of new COVID infections in Sonoma County last week was 67 new infections per day, with a high of 90 new infections yesterday, October 26th. There are presently 221 active COVID cases per 100,000 residents in Roanoke Park and 157 active cases per 100,000 in Cotati. With this level of new COVID infections, it is dangerous to return to normal school schedules or even hybrid school schedules with multiple people in a single room for extended periods of time. Data shows that student performance has actually improved over pre-COVID levels at Rancho Cotati High School. Last fall, the class failure rate, students with 1 or more F grades, was 30%. This year, the failure rate is just 26%. Our students are not being disadvantaged by distance learning, but they are also not serving as spreaders of the COVID virus from school to their families. We are teaching successfully in the distance learning mode, and our students are learning effectively in the distance learning mode. Sincerely, Nancy Ellis, teacher, Rancho Cotati High School.
Okay, next comment is from Denise Tranfaglia. Okay, good evening, board members and Dr. Perez. I have taught in this district for 22 years as a high school English language arts teacher. Teaching is one of my life's passions. Students are the reason I am drawn to this profession. I wholeheartedly will return to in-person learning when it is safe. It is not safe right now. I am saddened that this pandemic is so politicized. I am saddened that being a public educator is so politicized. As a teacher, I will not be villainized because I want to protect my health and safety as well as my community. I appreciate the support of Dr. Perez, board members, my school administrators, and fellow educators, as well as community members. Let's return to teaching only when it is safe to do so. Until then, I will continue to engage and be 110% for my students. Thank you.
The next comment is from Chris Brandenburg at Rancho Cotati High School. Although I do understand the frustration and concern that fuels the community's desire for reopening our schools as soon as possible, I cannot endorse it. Especially at the high grade levels, even the safest plan will not completely satisfy the students, parents, and teachers. Students will be disappointed in part-time, awkward, distance peer contact that doesn't come close to pre-pandemic life. The liability issues for the district are foreboding. Parents still will be dealing with the heavy burden of both parental and academic guidance. And lastly, teachers will be at risk even as they communicate with students through cumbersome plexiglass shields, visors, and masks that hinder real connection. The more prudent path is to wait until it is safe to truly reopen in-person schooling.
This is our final public comment, and it is from Jim Gregoretti. Dear Dr. Perez, Board President Brown, and fellow board trustees, my name is Jim Gregoretti, and I teach math, science, and tech arts at Lawrence E. Jones Middle School. I'm writing this evening to express my concern about the statements made during the last board meeting by certain parents. We are in the middle of one of the worst pandemics in recent history. Sonoma County is one of the only counties in the Bay Area that isn't still in the purple tier. As of October 26th, Sonoma County has had an increase of 90 cases of COVID-19. There are currently 1,496 active cases and 136 deaths. This increase in cases is not our fault. We are working to the best of our ability, trying to educate and care for our students. I, along with countless other teachers, are putting in more time now, preparing lessons, setting up assignments in our Google Classrooms, delivering virtual instruction, assisting students during our office hours, communicating with parents, grading assignments, entering into Power Schools. Many teachers are working harder now in distance learning than ever worked in our classrooms. We do this because we are passionate about teaching our students. No one ever said that distance learning was going to be easy, but we are making the best of our current situation. Our union contract does not supersede the law, and the law states that we cannot safely return back to school when our county is in the purple tier. It is as simple as that. Now, some parents are asking for us to forego science and everything that we know is true about COVID-19 and reopen our schools. This is folly. We have seen what happened in other districts around the country when students and teachers return to school. Higher risk of infection, a mandatory 14-day quarantine period, and even more time lost educating our students. In some cases, even death. That is why we say reopen only when it's safe. Yes, both students and teachers want to go back to school, but only when it's safe to do so. Let's remember that we have all the same goals to be back with our students in our classrooms. But under the current conditions, both students and staff would be putting themselves at a higher risk for contracting COVID-19. And none of us want that. Let's focus on what each of us can do to stop the spread of the virus, wear our masks, practice social distancing, washing your hands. As a parent of 2 children who graduated from Cotati-Roner Park Unified School District, I understand your frustration and I empathize with you. But trying to send back our students now is not the answer. Let's continue to dialogue and work together and build up the district, not tear it down. Let's focus on how to control the spread of the virus so that Sonoma County can move out of the red tier. Let's keep working collaboratively during distance learning in order to ensure that we are providing our students with the best possible education we can. If we all work together, we can make it happen. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Matt and Myra, for doing that, reading those. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Sure. And would you like, we can move into the presentation now?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just waiting for the PowerPoint to show. You're going to have seen some of these slides, but I do want to remind us, of some of the previous work we've done. The next slide, please. So this is just a reminder of the guiding documents. Beginning in June, we began to receive guiding documents Stronger Together from from the CDE. We've had the school reopening framework. Then in late August, we saw the blueprint from a safer economy. And that's what we got the color tier levels. And then we have guidance related to cohorts, and that's changing. That seems to be changing a little bit, and it changes day to day. And then September 11th, the districts were required to do, that's when we learned about to do contact tracing and make sure that we're providing the COVID testing for staff every 2 months. So, this is the blueprint for a safer economy. We're still in purple. I check this pretty routinely, a couple times a week, and we're still in purple as of the 27th of October, even though the presentation does say the 27th. So you can see where we're at is still widespread with the coronavirus. So we're remaining in the purple tier. And as you may recall, we have to stay, once we leave that tier, we have to remain in the tier for 2 weeks before we can advance to a less restrictive tier. And that's and if we look at the adjusted case rate and the positivity rate, if we're at 2 different tiers, we go back to the more restrictive tier. So we're hoping that that doesn't occur. Okay, so option 1 and I've been asked questions about this. Anyway, so this is one option for the tier. We can open if we have a waiver for TK6, and it's available when the cases are 100% residents and below 100% rate, right? And we are above that. So option one is not a possibility currently for our district. Just a reminder of the requirements: we must consult with our parents and our labor partners. We must publicize a reopening plan. We do have a reopening plan with some protocols that we are using as a guideline as we develop further protocols. And then all public health criteria listed for hybrid and traditional learning need to be in place, and we have to have a waiver approved. Tier 2. Now, this is something that we could consider in-person instruction to services to small groups of special needs students. So what we have defined as special needs students, are English learners, foster youth, homeless, our most vulnerable populations. The requirements there are the face masks, cleaning procedures. We have to make sure that we have a cohort plan, and that has to be posted on our website. Students with disabilities would be prioritized. The cohorts could not exceed 16 students, and the number of students at a given school should not exceed 25% of the school's enrollment. And individual cohorts cannot be mixed, so we can't be mixing cohorts. And when you look at these requirements, that means an MOU with our labor partners. We have to have contact tracing, someone that's doing the contact tracing. And we have to make sure that we're testing staff. We have an agency that tests our staff every 2 months. Now for red tier. So what happens when we get to red tier? So if we go hybrid model, this is not full-time. We must abide by those cohort rules. So we have to make sure that we're social distancing in the classrooms, in the offices, on the playgrounds, throughout the school campuses. We have face coverings are an expectation for all staff and students. Strongly encouraged for TK2, and daily health screenings for staff and students. And this means we need to take the temperature of everyone that enters a school facility or a district building. And we have to ask a series of questions. Maybe some of you have been to a place that provides services and they ask you, have you come in contact with someone who's had COVID? Have you had any symptoms? This is all something that we would have to do with our students and staff regularly before if we open a hybrid. Also, the single point of entry and exit, we'd have to have check-in points clearly delineated and communicate to the families. How are we going to enter campus? So that's something that we would have to work out, have the proper signage. Cleaning and disinfection must happen, and this is a comprehensive process that is, above and beyond what typical cleaning of a classroom is or a school area is. And then we have to make sure we have isolation areas. If anyone's demonstrating any kind of symptom, we have to have an area for isolation. So the next thing I'd like to do is to show a short video about what it means to be getting ready for red and what that means. And this was provided courtesy of the Sonoma County Office of Education, and I think it'll be helpful in understanding the red tier. Mr. Kirby, we don't have sound. Still no sound.
The color tier system that decides when schools and businesses can fully reopen. The blueprint for a safer economy ranks counties by color based on the spread of coronavirus within a community. Purple counties have widespread risk of coronavirus. Red counties have substantial risk. Orange counties have moderate risk, while for yellow counties, the spread is minimal. Schools in purple counties can't reopen for regular in-person classes unless they have special permission from state and county officials. Right now, Sonoma County is still in purple. What does that mean for us? Imagine that school is like an airport and students are traveling there on a plane. The plane cannot land if there are dangerous conditions like an icy runway. This is like being in the purple tier. We are waiting for conditions to improve. Once the runway is cleared and the plane can land safely, the plane can begin to descend. This is like our county meeting the criteria for the red tier while still in the purple. This process takes 2 weeks to ensure that conditions are stable enough that we can land and move to red. But you can't get off the plane until it arrives safely at an airport gate. Likewise, on-site classes can't resume until our county has remained in the red tier for an additional 2 weeks. So after 4 total weeks of first waiting to be in red and then making sure conditions remain stable in red, schools have the option to reopen. They don't have to apply for permission, but they do have to follow safety guidelines set by the state of California and the county. This includes having the right safety equipment, testing staff regularly, and having a system to track any COVID-19 cases that occur. These and other factors mean that not every school will go back at the same time. Talk to your district to learn more about their plans for reopening once we're in red. When will it be safe to go to red? It depends on all of us. We can each do our part by wearing a mask, keeping our distance, and limiting our social gatherings. This will help stop the spread of coronavirus and make it safer for children and staff to return to school.
Okay, so now I want to continue with the presentation. We have we did a survey for parents a month ago. We are preparing to launch another survey. And today I want to share the teacher survey that we provided on, it began on October 7th, and we allowed for about a week for teachers to respond. So we had a very good response, 230 responses from our teachers, from our staff, 78%. So 63% of the teachers are spending much more time. And so this is just a global overview. Sorry, they didn't prepare that really well, but this is just kind of the highlights of the survey. And we do have a lot of comments that we're going over. We are presenting this to each individual principals, also presenting this to their school sites and discussing it with their team. Anyway, 63% of the time, the teachers are spending much more time than expected preparing lessons. We all know that what we're seeing is that teaching online is very different, and it's requiring just a larger investment in time. So although we have preparation time, it's exceeding the preparation time that we've allocated for teachers. The greatest area of stress for our staff, for our teachers, is prep time and technology. And 70% of our teachers are adapting assignments and student work, and they're in consideration of the stress that is creating for our students. So they're really modifying the work, which I applaud them for, because each student's home life may be a little bit different. So we need to be cognizant of that. The effective areas of support reported, the most support that folks are feeling is that IT support, site and grade level teams, and peer support. And of course, that seems natural that those are going to be the highest levels of support, because it's talking to one another that we get better and we can redesign our lessons to make sense. In terms of student engagement, we asked the teachers, so how are the students engaging? 92% of our students are engaging through Google Meets, and 68% those are the highest 2 percentages of what we asked. 68% are completing their assignments. And what we're finding is, I think this is probably the case for many of our stakeholders, 64% of the teachers are struggling with work-life balance, spending a lot of time on the screen and a lot of time preparing lessons. So this is one of the most critical questions that we felt that we needed to ask staff, is how are they feeling about returning? So the statement is, I am ready to return to work once it's safe. So I put two groups together. I have the survey right here, but we have 32% of the teachers that either strongly agree or somewhat agree with the statement that they would be ready to return. So strongly agree, that's 13%. And somewhat agree, that's 19%. And then the next statement is 31% of the teachers somewhat disagree with the statement that they're going to be ready to return. And about 35% of our teaching staff strongly disagree that they are ready to return. So that's I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about how the staff is feeling in terms of, what are the big challenges for them. Anyway, one of the things that, again, I want to remind us of, that contact tracing is a school district responsibility. Currently, we're doing that with the current staff, and we don't have everyone back on campus, and it's taking a significant amount of time to do this work. So I'm really appreciative to our staff that it is going above and beyond, doing their regular job, and in addition, taking on COVID tracing. Staff testing is recommended every 2 months. We have yet to implement this, but we would have to make sure that we were implementing this. We do make sure that we inform any staff should they come in contact with someone that may have just symptoms or test positive. We do inform them of where they can go to be tested. Availability of testing could be a challenge, and the other biggest challenge, I think, is sometimes folks are asymptomatic. I believe adults as well as children are, and there's a link to a study about the students being asymptomatic. And what we've been told that the science has informed us is that 1 in 10 students will have COVID and have no symptoms. Anyway, and then again, we do have a liability challenge that excludes communicable diseases. So those are some of the challenges. I just want to make sure that everybody's aware. So the other thing that I want to remind us, I generally do not put a PowerPoint with this much text, but what I wanted to remind us of is when we're ready to open and we're on hybrid and ready to go, if 5% of our total teachers, students, and staff at a school have COVID, test positive for COVID, the school will close down. We will have to close down our school. If 25% of our schools close, the district will have to close down again to distance learning. I just wanted to make sure that everybody has all the facts. So what are we doing to prepare? So we have had staff that has been trained on contact tracing courtesy of Sonoma County Office of Education. So we have a small group of staff members that have been trained.
Myra, this is Laf. Yes. I hate to interrupt. Can you go back one slide? I just want a little clarification. So you say if 5% cases, a school will close, but then you said if 25% of the district, we will, so is that, what's 25%? Is that 25% in schools?
Of the school, 25% of schools. So 25% of schools in our district.
Of our schools. So so how many schools is that? So we can just be clear.
I believe I calculated out to be 3.
3. So if 3 of our schools close, we have to close the entire district.
That's right.
Okay, just want to make sure that everybody understands that what we're talking about is not 5 schools or not total kids. We're saying if 3 schools close, the whole district has to shut down.
Has to return, yes, and has to shut
down. And I'm sure that's going to be a frustration too, if one school doesn't have that and the others do. So that would be 25%. That would be 12 schools altogether. So 9 other schools that don't have it are closing because of the other 3. And I realize that these are health driven numbers. These are not numbers that we're coming up, correct?
Correct. This is all guidance from county public health.
Okay, so I just want to make sure parents know that this is not some arbitrary number that we're using. We are following what we have to by law.
Exactly. County, this is not our decision. It's definitely county public health. Sonoma County Public Health that determines.
All right. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. I just want a little clarification.
No worries. No worries. So what are we doing? Prepare. I talked about tracing in terms of communicating. We have to communicate with agencies. And we have to develop a contract. So we're going to have to contract out COVID testing for staff. That's what we're going to have to do. We're also currently working with our union partners on developing a hybrid learning MOU. We're in really good shape. We've been working on this for several weeks. And what we're doing with this, a few months ago was a little bit, it was challenging. We're getting to know each other, but really, we're really getting in the nitty gritty and making sure that the current guidance and protocols provided by the state and the county public health is what's in that MOU, so that we're all clear and following the right protocols. So I applaud it. It's a district team and a teacher team, and people are working many hours to get this done and reading and preparing for our meeting. So I'm really appreciative of the work. We're also learning from other counties that have begun opening up. So Sonoma County Office of Education had a meeting recently where we had a panel, basically a panel of experts that shared their thoughts and ideas, and they shared what they're doing to open up. And we were able to listen to that. And I'll share those groups in a minute. Also, we're visiting schools that have transitioned to hybrid. So currently, Novato has opened up, San Rafael City Schools is opening up. So we're taking field trips to see what those classrooms look like. How are we setting things up? Because we want to learn from them and to see how we keep our students and our staff safe. Also, we're reviewing districts, the hybrid schedules from different districts that have opened up. So we have access to the Miller Creek schedule, the San Rafael schedule, El Dorado, Hillsborough, Placerville Union, and Menlo Park. So that was part of that panel that shared all of their documents so that we have resources to see what are they doing exactly to keep everyone safe. We're also, we surveyed parents once about distance learning. Now we're gonna get into surveying, going out next week, is really getting into the details of who wants to return and who does not feel comfortable returning. And I wanted to add, although it's not on this PowerPoint, that we have to consider a virtual academy. So depending on what families do not wish to return because they do not feel comfortable, we're going to have to offer a virtual academy, which means we'll have to identify one of our principals to be the principal of the virtual academy. We will need to enroll kids. We're going to need to find teachers that maybe don't feel comfortable coming back to hybrid, have health concerns, so they will teach in that virtual academy. So there's just a lot of things that we're planning and we're working on as we speak on a daily basis. So the next slide, please. So the recommendations right now this evening that I would appreciate that the board would approve would be to extend distance learning through January of 2021. We will continue to work with our labor partners. I believe we will have an MOU within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We're gonna reconstitute the reopening task force to look at the hybrid schedules and see what adjustments do we need to make to the schedules? How do we need to group children? And these will be discussed. And then once we have those hybrid schedules, they do go back to the group that's working on the MOU to make sure that our schedules are compliant with our MOU so that we're all set to go. We have to secure a contract for staff testing, as I explained before, and we have to bring that contract to the board for approval. We also need to consider hiring a COVID coordinator. Petaluma, Santa Rosa, Salinas, and Hemet have hired have posted. Actually, one district has hired, the other districts have posted and have openings for these positions. Because of the increase of people on our campuses, we believe there's going to be increase in the contact tracing that we have to do. So I believe that we're going to need extra staff, and we do have federal CARES money to hire these positions, and these are temporary positions while this pandemic continues to occur. And then we're going to inform the community of updates and pertinent information. I'm also planning on having a parent meeting, so we have some things, we have a timeline that we're looking at and continuing to add to the timeline to make sure that we have informed everyone. So that concludes the presentation, and I don't know if any trustees have any questions for me.
Myra, I have some questions. One of the letters we got tonight talks about how we need to do surveys of the staff and surveys of the parents, and I know we've done those, and I know you presented one tonight that addressed that very question. So wanted to clear that up. And then there was another comment made that someone didn't have confidence that we were working and ready to go. I don't think that's true either. I think you and your staff have been working really hard behind the scenes, working on all these issues that you just brought up to us on the presentation. So the other thing I wanted to mention is I don't believe that there are any schools, correct me if I'm wrong, that are opening full-time for students because we are still under 6-foot social distancing. I know some kids that have gone to school in different places, Napa, et cetera, a couple days a week, 3 hours a day. I don't think we have it in our purview from the state or county level at this point that we are going to open full bore to school, because I think there are limitations to that. Is that correct?
That's correct. When in the red tier, a teacher cannot be exposed to more than 2 cohorts of students in a week. So what that means is that currently at this time, a cohort is defined as 16 students. And that kind of changes depending on the most current data. And then we're also working on the MOU. So, you know, that can change. So basically, we're talking about each teacher having no more, actually I refrain, I think we're at 14 as we discussed the MOU. So that means that no teacher can be exposed to more than 28 students a week.
Right.
Right. So then what a hybrid model, there's different, we have to look at what works best for us and what our staff, you know, in terms of the disinfecting. But at this point, the 2 hybrid models that exist is children go to school on Monday and Tuesday. Schools are typically closed on Wednesday for cleaning. And then Thursday and Friday, another group of students go to school. The other
So at
hybrid,
this point, oh, sorry.
excuse me, the other hybrid model that I've heard about is AM, PM. Students go to school in the morning. Then in the middle of the day, everything stops. There's disinfecting going on. And then there's a PM group. So, you know, the challenge being we're still up, you know, we're looking at the working hours for folks, making sure that we're not violating any contracts, making sure that our classified staff are able to clean the rooms adequately. And keep in mind that if we're cleaning on Wednesday, we've got to clean on Saturday to be ready for Monday. So these are all the things that we're working through. It's simply not easy. We are up to the challenge, and people and staff is putting in many, many hours of work to go through this, you know, kind of work this through and brainstorm together.
So I'm curious, who's brainstorming this together? Who is part of the team that's working to put the plan together? Are all your principals on it, or is it just the union?
Well, currently the union is working on it.
Why is it just the union?
Oh, not only just the union. We have cabinet members that are meeting, you know, for example, to determine how long it takes to disinfect classrooms, and, you know, can we do an AM, PM? So we're discussing that with staff, and we will be calling together the task force to bring in principals and teachers to have that discussion on.
So I heard that Pengrove opened up 2 grade levels for pods. I'm not sure how many kids are in a class. I think somebody said 10. So
Yes.
I know there's a lot of talk about that right now, and a lot of the private schools are opening in Santa Rosa. Not that I'm saying we need to do things that are safe and healthy for our whole staff, but we need a plan in place. And parents are pissed, and they have every reason to be mad. You need a timeline, and you need to be bringing everyone together to work in this.
Yes.
There's nothing is taking place.
Yeah, well, that's
We're
what,
very disappointed. Krista might not be, but I'm pretty pissed off.
okay. Well, point taken. We are working on it, and it's taking a little bit of time, but we will be continue to meet with folks and continue to bring people into the conversation.
I would really like to see a timeline. If you can put together a calendar with a timeline on it.
I have a question. How are you going to put a calendar together when we're still in the purple chair? We have to be 2 weeks in the red.
About that, Krista. I understand where we are with our purple, where we are in our.
Doesn't appear to be the case. You keep saying nobody's doing anything.
There are people doing it. They're getting waivers and they're going back.
There are 3 private schools in Santa Rosa that got
Right.
waivers because their cohorts are 43 students.
I get that. I also understand about what's going on with Pengrove. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we need to have a plan in place so parents can plan. We need a plan. We need to know what parents are going to bring their kids back, what teachers are going to come back. If you don't even know that, how can you plan anything? We should have had that plan in during the summer when you planned out your classes.
We are planning and we are researching. And, you know, for example, I heard today of a district that has brought back small cohorts and it's classified staff, it's not teachers. So, you know, that's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of is, you know,
Right.
who's bringing-
I'm at this point getting more concerned with kids' state of being and their mental health over COVID. I am afraid that we're going to see much more of a fallout from that than we are from COVID.
Well, I have confidence in the state and I have confidence in the county and I have confidence in our superintendent that we are following the science. And that's what we have to do to protect our students and our staff and our families from getting sick. Nobody likes this situation. Everybody's worried about our children and their mental health. How do you release a timeline that says on this date we're going to do that when you do not know when we're going to be able to open schools? We don't have that information. It's all up in the air. Are we opening 2 weeks from today?
Have a plan in place so that when we're ready and we go to red, we are ready to go.
Well, and I believe that Myra and her cabinet and the staff of CRPUSD are going to do everything they can in the coming weeks to have a plan. And that's how long it's going to take, at least.
And we were supposed to have a plan a couple weeks ago, so it's.
I recall in a board meeting, Myra did say to us that by the 26th of October, which
Did
was
we have a plan?
yesterday, she would have information to us about the next piece. And the next piece is to take a look in December 15th, according to what we got in our agenda, to see where we stand on that day. If we're still purple, we won't even be coming back to school in the middle of January because we have to be 4 weeks in the red zone. That's not Myra making it up. That is Dr. Mace and Governor Newsom.
There still needs to be a plan in place.
They're working on it. I mean, that's what she just presented,
Yeah.
the plan they're working on.
Same thing that they've been working on. Nothing's changed.
Well, I guess if we all had a magic wand, we could have everything done yesterday that our parents would like to have done, our staff, our teachers, the board. Everybody wants our kids back at school, but everybody wants to do it safely, and we're going to have a plan that's going to take some time to suss out, as well as working with other districts who have made some stumbles and mistakes along the way so they can pass their knowledge on to us so we don't make some of those same mistakes.
Just a reminder, we don't know, and let's say we go to red and we go back. That's a small percentage if 3 schools have cases and we're just going to be back to square one with everyone back at home.
Correct, but you also have to take into account that even if you only have a quarter of the kids that want to go back and teachers that want to go back, there may only be a limited amount of people on campus as it is. So you
That's true.
don't know that until you survey everybody. Right?
Well, the survey of the teachers kind of showed that tonight that about a third of them would want to be willing to go back.
Or not. If the parents decide they want to go back, we have to figure that out as well. So that is another plan in itself, right?
Sure. Yeah, and I was trying to counting the comments as to which wanted to go back and which didn't. So it's. I mean, we had a pretty good turnout of responses from teachers, probably 90% roughly. It'd be interesting. I mean, and I don't know, I'm just guessing. Let's just guess that 60% of the parents want to send their kids back and 40% stay home. It's just, how do you, it's difficult until we know, what those numbers are, and then it's difficult to know what's going to happen when we roll into flu season. And it's difficult to know. We can have a plan ready to go, and I'm confident that we can react if everything, and hopefully everything does go to red or get better type of thing. But at the same time, there's just a lot of unknowns due to the virus.
Right. And I understand that, but I would rather have a plan than have to react to everything.
Right. Well, even if we have a plan, I guarantee we're going to be reacting, because there's no way to know. I mean, this virus is roughly 10 months old now, or 11. I mean, this virus could be a year from
We could be
my,
doing this for a couple years.
I know it's going to be for a couple of years until we get a vaccine, and it's interesting. I got surveyed today. So you want to go to Giants games next year? No, not yet. Not, so, but other people are starving to go out and to do things because of the mental thing. And I understand the mental anguish too.
I'm afraid when it starts raining, I'm afraid it's going to get far worse, because there's going to be nowhere for anyone to go. There's going to be no outlets. You won't be able to go to restaurants. It's going to get dark.
No, I think we should start playing in the puddles. I like playing in the puddles, but no, not to joke. It's serious. So, and I don't know what the flu season is going to bring. So I wish we knew. I wish it was more.
Well, I find it very frustrating to drive around our community on the weekends and see kids playing soccer with no masks and parents on the sideline with no masks, football scrimmages with no masks and parents on the side with no masks. We are never going to control the virus in Roner Park, Tecate, if people do not social distance, wear a mask, wash their hands, and take some personal responsibility for others in our community. And it's very frustrating as a board member to not see a lot of sunshine in what people are doing. It's very frustrating.
Joe or Tim, do you have comments or questions?
I was just thinking about, even if it'd be nice to, test, to see who would want to go to back to school or not. But I think even after 4 weeks, a lot can change in a family. So people who want to go might not want to go. People who are planning to go, someone in their family might had COVID and it might scare them, and then they don't want to go. So I think if we make a plan, it should be to really do a deep survey when we get a lot closer to opening, not as much right now, because I feel like it'd be nice to survey and ask, but to not base a plan on it, just kind of test the waters. Because I know, like at job sites that we have, there's some people that, someone on the job site gets sick, no one really knows who it is, and everyone's getting tested, and people are like, well, I'm not coming to work for a few days, or someone who's, family member gets really sick and they're like, totally don't want to do anything. They don't want to be around anyone, it really scares them. And, to speak about the stress of it, I mean, I've really been thinking a lot about like what's best for my kids. And of course I want them to be educated, and I want them to be super successful in life. But, like the other night, my youngest, she's about to be 6, and she's so stressed out about finishing her Lexia, and she's been, working on it. And it's like, 5 o'clock, and she's has like a breakdown, like just crying and freaking out because she's not finishing her Lexia. And I'm like, me as a parent, I'm like, this is not worth it. If my kid is this stressed out by staring at a screen all the time? Like, we're going to take a break, we can do it tomorrow. You know, my son, he's struggling too. And I'm going to do everything I can to make him, you know, try to make him be responsible. And it's, you know, it's kind of hard. And I want him to value education, but I don't want my kids to have a mental breakdown. And I know I feel like I'm, you know, wound up in a cage, and I'm not a kid, you know, so I can only imagine how hard it is for them. So my priority is, you know, if something slips, okay, we'll deal with it. We need to work on it, but I'm not going to stress my kids out about a lot of stuff that I normally would, just because they don't have an outlet. And, you know, and I know my daughter is very stressed out about COVID. She has written songs about it. She's talked to us about it. She brings it up all the time. She doesn't want to go places. If we're walking and someone doesn't have a mask, she makes comments about it. And I honestly feel that if she went to school right now and, you know, someone got it, or, you know, I think she would be so much more stressed out than being at home with us where she feels safe. And obviously that's a 6-year-old, and she's, you know, pretty in tune, but, you know, I know a lot of other kids are like that and have those fears. And imagine, you know, being told about this virus and being scared, and then having to go to school and worried about getting the virus when you're at school, you know, instead of being at home when you're safe with your family. You know, those are the things that I think about. The rest of the stuff about when we open, that's not even up to us. You know, that's, like everyone else is saying, that's up to the county when we can open. And, you know, I'm sure we can try really hard to petition, but, you know, I guarantee that, you know, 5% of a school is not that much, you know, like that school shut down. And then what if you have a kid in one school and a kid in another school, and that school shut down, and that's your elementary school? And, you know, maybe you had your older kid kind of helping out that goes to the ranch, but they're still going to school. Like, what are you going to do? You know, I'd rather us open more of a less hybrid and more of like a full-time thing, and be super safe about it. And just like, now we're going back to school, you know, skip the red and start in yellow or something. I don't know what we can or can't do, but I'd rather be more sure than going back that we're not going to have to go back to homeschooling, to distance learning, to where it's like, once we go back, we're going to stay there for a while. It would take a lot for us to go back to distance learning. Anyway, those are just my thoughts, and that's how I feel.
Thanks, Joe. Jim?
Hey, Lev. Yeah, this is Tim. Thanks. I want to talk about this issue in a different way in terms of values, but two values in particular that run through our bylaws. But before I talk about those, I just want to say that I personally resent attacks on teachers and administrators who are working their butts off by people who question their motives and their dedication. To me, our teachers and administrators are heroes. They're working so hard. They're so dedicated, and to question their motives and dedication is just outrageous to me. And this does not mean that I'm minimizing the hardship that parents are going through with the burden that was suddenly placed on their shoulders. All of us, like Chris has said, realize that no one likes any of these burdens and difficulties, that we all want the students back in the classrooms when it's safe. So those attacks are just unfair. But then I just want to say two things about values. Two of the values for people who've read through the bylaws, whoever they are putting the health and safety of students and staff at the top of the list. And that's because you can't teach someone who's dead. And so we can't just say, oh, we're going to ignore this value that runs through our bylaws of putting health and safety first because there are some people who are angry. And we can't just arbitrarily disregard that value. That would be irresponsible. The second value is education. We want to impart knowledge, critical thinking skills, hands-on learning, all the things that go into education. But can you imagine as an educational institution if we said to the community, including students and staff, we don't care about science. Science be damned. We're just going to throw everyone together in the middle of a 100-year pandemic and see what happens. Let's take a chance. Let's roll the dice. Well, no, we would be irresponsible to do that. We have to follow science. We can't follow the political winds or irrational behavior. We have to follow the science, and the science is clear. And for anyone who takes the time to look at it. So these values are mutually interdependent. You can't value the health and safety of students and staff without valuing education, including science. And you can't value education, including science, if you're not putting the health and safety of students and staff first, because you're not going to be able to teach them if they're not there. So yeah, the passions are running high. We all understand that, but this is the time to be more firmly rooted in our values, because that's the only way to bring our community together so that we can address this crisis. If we just divide into sides like we see throughout our society and we're yelling at each other, we're not doing the students any good. We have to try to find ways, given each of our particular burdens, whether you're an administrator, a teacher, a parent, or student, we have to find a way to live out these values which make our educational institutions great. If we give up those values and we just say, to hell with health and safety, to hell with science, what are we? And that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. So,
I'd like to speak again.
Myra, so are we've discussed this, you've given us your program. Is there any other input or questions?
Yeah, I said I wanted to speak again. I mean, again, it's not about putting people in danger. This is about having a plan in place, and many of the districts have a plan in place, and that is what the parents are asking for. When it's safe to go back to school, they want to know what the plan is going to be. They want the communication. We need to have that communication. Even if it's having discussions, I mean, I talk to teachers on a daily basis. I know they're having a very difficult time. They want to be with their kids. They see what's going on. There's kids that don't get out of bed and are doing their class with their computer next to their bed. They're not engaging. This is not easy for everyone. Maybe at different levels, they should only have 3 classes for the semester. It seems to be working for Rancho. I don't know if that's a conversation that's been had with other, grade levels. There's some other ways that are going to ease some of the stress that's happening every single day, all day long at home. And a lot of these kids don't have the support that like Joe has. Joe's family is very fortunate. I love hearing your stories, Joe. But I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of kids out there that don't have that kind of support and they need it. So I just want to hear a plan. And I want to hear there's more people included in that plan. Planning it out and communicating. I almost think that there needs, some of the different districts actually have a committee that is working on it together. And there's also parents on that committee.
So which Jennifer, can you provide those districts that have committees for us, please?
I can't get you a list. I can't off the top of my head right this second.
No. But I mean, can you send that to, not as a Brown Act thing, but if you could send it to me and to Myra?
Yeah.
So we need to, in any way that we can leverage ideas, plans, etc.
Right. I mean, it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's talking and learning to others and see what everyone's going through different pieces of this.
Right.
It's having a tremendous impact on everyone's life in a very hard way.
Well, I agree. This is extremely difficult for everybody. And we can go forward that way. So if you'll give me that and to Myra, I'd appreciate that. So our next steps, Myra, are?
If the board would like to approve it to extend distance learning until January 21, and then we will work on the plan for moving into red tier, which we'll present in upcoming board meetings.
So this is a discussion item. We're not taking any action, but what you're recommending in the discussion is just what you just said.
Yes.
Right, Left, this is Tim. I support the superintendent's plan and I approve of it.
Okay. Thank you.
This is Krista. I approve of this as well, Myra.
Okay. So I guess we will go forward in this difficult situation, working the best we can with the most of the resources, trying to expand. If we were to send a survey out to all parents, I guess is one of the things we could say with a question, are you willing to send your student back to school once we get out of the purple? Is that something we would do? So yes, we would know. I mean, that may change, like Joe said, someone in their family gets sick, but is that something we can, I don't know how we can do that now and then maybe do that a month from now? Because it doesn't look like we're going to get out of the purple anytime quick.
Yes, we can certainly do that. In fact, we have a teacher and a parent survey ready to go.
Okay, I think we should do that. I think we should go out and find out. It was a pretty good survey of the teachers. Kind of woke me up that, wow, like 2/3 of them don't sound like they want to come back. And a third might, but that's, So I would like to hear from parents, and then if 2/3 of them come back, then when we go to red, how do you, and then for the unions, how do you distant learning teach? And it's not going to be full time. And you've been working, maybe some of that planning can, or, framework can be put out there. This is, one way to do it if the wind blows that way, but, not knowing what the solutions are. But I hear what Jennifer's saying, that parents want to hear something, but you're kind of planning for the unknown. So, and I hear you guys trying to follow the state laws, the county laws, that too. So it's difficult to do that.
So Myra, the questions to the parents will include the fact that this is for hybrid learning.
Yes.
2 days a week, because we have some parents saying only opening, full time is the only way. And so I just want to make sure that those parents understand that it's going to be difficult 2 days a week to get your kids to and from school. and shortened days, et cetera, and still have 3 days a week of distance learning.
Yeah, we can certainly include, you know, a little information about what hybrid means.
Okay.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure.
I do have a question, just not about this at all. Do we have one board meeting or two in November?
We have one board meeting in November, November 17th.
Keeping it that, or are we going to have two?
If the board would like another board meeting, we can certainly have one.
Jennifer, what are you proposing for
I'm
the,
just wondering with things that if you're making a plan and getting a survey out, if you think you'll be able to give us all the information at the November meeting.
I don't know if it'll, well, will it be ready by November? We're almost in November now, and the November meeting is November what?
17th.
17th.
Okay. I think a meeting before then might not give us enough time to gather the information we need.
Yeah, and then the next week's Thanksgiving, so there's that.
But you can't go anywhere and see anybody for Thanksgiving, so cancel Thanksgiving. So,
Unless you stay in your little pods.
right, yeah. So, no, I mean, obviously staff and teachers and students have time off during that because we're shut down for, are we shut down for a week over Thanksgiving?
Yep.
Okay, so. Well, let's keep it on for right now, you know, the one meeting, and let's see what we can come up with for survey information by then, if by chance, okay?
Yeah, that's what we will bring back that on top of some other things that we are scheduled to have for board approval that will allow us to be able to contact trace and all that good stuff. So
Okay.
that's what we're working towards.
Now, just a side note, one person to contract trace, that, I don't know how one person can do that. Especially if people are, I mean, wow. For those people that are still working, like myself, although I don't get close to people, I could be at, and I don't know if this is, if Joe runs in this, I could be at 5 to 7 job sites a day and not knowing who's been there. I mean, I wash my hands, I stay 10 feet away from anybody, and then I go to the grocery store and I buy stuff. Again, I wash my hands, but it's just like, I feel like that if I came down with the virus, I would never know where it came from because I'm active from that standpoint.
We're estimating about 15 hours, probably 15 hours per case, and you know, or suspected case, because what we have is someone will come in with symptoms, and we're averaging two suspected symptoms or cases a week. So it will ramp up once we open up. So that's why we will need additional support or additional staff to be very clear on the protocols.
Yeah, no, it's that. I think that's going to take a lot more than one person can do. I mean, it's just, anyway. Okay. All right. If I don't have any other comments, I will adjourn the meeting and thank you for everybody. And we will talk to you later. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.